Hey, Ronnie Jr.
So, okay, a season 5 of Hacks on the horizon. I mean, that's a big deal. Hacks is so good for comedy, for just good storytelling. Paul W. Downs, the creator of the show, along with his wife and the other gal, I forget her name at the moment. I just think they created such a good show. Yes, it gets all the Emmy nominations, but there are times you hear critiques about the show, this, that, and the other. And I just feel like it really works for the audience that it's intending to work for. I have loved this show since day one. Also, very interested to see him in the role of Jimmy as both, a creator of the show and, of course, in the character of Jimmy. But, he was so funny all those years on Broad City. So to see like all this success is wonderful. I mean, the wonderful Jean Smart. I mean, whoa, 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 and wow. How amazing is she? What she has given to the character Deborah Vance, it just keeps on going and growing and becoming bigger and better and complex. And just when you think you know her, you don't. I was won over with this show from the first episode, season 1, the wonderful scene between Ava, Hannah Einbinder, being so in a situation, Ava was, and she has to go to Vegas. She doesn't want to go to Vegas, and she's sitting there with Deborah Vance, and just this, almost like this sizing up of each other. You're sort of washed up, the older generation, the moo lady that does stuff on QVC, and, Deborah Vance, of course, looking at Ava like, what? You don't even know how to write a joke. You don't even know how to, like, you're not even grown up. You're not even like a real fully formed person. And that scene was so funny to me because a lot of it has to do with some of the things that are intriguing to me. So for me, I've worked in the world of radio. I always say it like for 155 years. Not saying the checks are that great, but my point is, maybe that's why I'm messing up because I can't even get a sentence out. But my point is, hello, when I worked in radio for all these years, it's like so much of like just you love the art in a certain way, and then other people like love the silly stuff. So it was funny when she said the word clips. You've seen clips of the show? So it's Ava sitting there, and Ava's like, oh yeah, I love your work. And so, Jean Smart and the character Deborah Vance was like, well, what is it that you loved? I wrote 30,000 jokes. What's your favorite? And so Ava, caught in a lie, is like, oh, I love your sitcom. It's just pulling things out of the air, right? And then Deborah Vance was like, my sitcom from 1972. And Ava's like, yeah, I loved it. And Deborah's like, you've seen it? And she's like, I've seen clips. And Deborah's frustrated. What? You saw clips? Like, that ain't it. That ain't the show. That's how I feel about a lot of things. I feel like so many times now we are aiming for clips. I mean, thinking about great talk shows of today, they are so stupid. You know what I mean? They're so dumb with the pin the tail on the donkey and a silly dumb dance, And I'm not saying Deborah Vance saying clips represented, kind of how Ava wasn't fully looking at the comedy world in that moment, but it is that level. One time I was doing a after show podcasting, and we thought we had a fan of the show come on, and the fan of the show comes on, and we're thinking, because the fan of the show had a tattoo of the show we were covering, and we're covering the show, and we're like, oh my gosh, she's got a tattoo of a quote from the show. She's gonna have a miraculous story. She literally never saw the show, but she saw some out of context Twitter that like had a quote that inspired her. I'm like, you're going to tattoo something you never even seen the episode? I mean, I don't want to say it's that deep. She probably saw the episode, but it's just that whole sort of phoning in moment that we're going through a lot these days. We're like not really all the way present in consuming anything really. And I'm one of the few people who's like, oh, low attention span. Like, okay, fine. Do it if you want. Scroll if you want. I mean, when we get older, you're going to want your mind to always be developed. It's why I listen to like an hour and a half podcasts all the time, but I don't scroll for nothing. Versus I know people who will scroll 60 times and watch 60, things for a minute. That's a full hour. So it's really not the difference. It's just what you want to consume and how you want to consume it. You want quality or you want quantity. I want quality. Anyways, I just really had to go back to that moment of why I like Hacks so much, and the contrast of like, oh, Hacks isn't really this or that, or it's not hitting here, it's not hitting there. Yes, it is. Now, let's talk about season 4, and I'll talk about my favorite season. Season 1, such a home run. I just love everything about it. Season 2 was the different one because it had to be with a lot of traveling and it had to be going back to the roots of hitting the clubs and stuff like that and to really bond Ava and Deborah. So I get that too. But season 3, oh my gosh, when it started coming to leveraging your situation versus my situation and your situation versus my situation, I was like, this is a show here. And that was a perfect cliffhanger from 3 into 4. Now, 4, for me, like I said, I feel like they do this show for me because my dream, ever since I could remember, outside of working in the world of radio, I like would have the toilet paper spool. Is it that? What is it called? The toilet paper, little cardboard. When the toilet paper is done, it's when the toilet paper has already been in the butt and down the toilet, and now you just got the little round spool. I would pick that thing up, and it sounds nasty when you say it that way. I would pick that thing up, and I would go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, looking in the mirror like I was hosting my own late night talk show, or talk show for that matter. It really was about, I loved this artistry so much. So for season 4, whatever the critique is, or if it isn't, I just was going to be head over heels over a talk show, behind the scenes, chaos, but yet you got to still make the show good. I've worked in radio for so many years, so I know a lot about like everything that's going on, but then still, okay, we're going live in 3, 2, the song's ending, boom, and you're back, and you just really got to push through. It's not easy, and I just related to it so much. So, I've heard like, and I don't pay attention to a lot of critiques. It's one thing I don't do. I just like to enjoy a show. And if I see somebody talking about the show that I like, I'm like, okay, I'll listen to that. But I don't like to go to like, people love the Reddits and the this and the that. And well, TikTok says, well, who is TikTok? It's like, I don't care about that. I mean, personally. But I did get wind that there was a lot of like, oh, it's an exciting talk show, network executives, and that push and pull, almost like Entourage in a way. But, that's not a model that is really happening now in quote unquote talk shows or Hollywood. And while I could understand that because so many things have changed, specifically, not only the strike and the fires and the formula itself, has changed so much. I mean, what was it? James Corden, his show ended, and then they didn't really do another version. There wasn't like a, kind of like, who was the guy? Craig Kilborn. When Craig Kilborn finished, then it was, what's his name? Craig Ferguson. And then it was Corden, like as if you always find another person to do that format. Well, now it's not even that. Now it's like a different show, after midnight or something like that. And so on one hand, I could understand that critique a lot because it's like, you're sort of making it like Deborah's in this big moment, but it's not as much like that. But you know what? It still is. You know why? Because deals still happen, because careers are still things that you have to make big choices. You have to make big choices on integrity. You have to make big choices on the people that you work with. That thing, it's like money. Yeah, sure. We all love it and need it. But sometimes the people you choose to work with is more important than the money that you're making. Something along those lines is what always sticks with me. That's from another show. HBO's How to Make It. Go back and watch it. It was so good. But anyways, for me, I just think this is a place to relish and celebrate the show Hacks because it was so fun. It was so good. And for it to get a season 5, I'm like all in. I think it's really exciting. I love some of the guest stars they've been bringing in throughout the seasons. But even like having the funny social media manager is, Jake is his name, the podcaster. And he's just a funny guy all around. I mean, I thought that was a really good, old school versus new school. And that's what I, in my 40s, that's where I always sort of lose out. I love this. This is what I love. I love when we do this. But much like Deborah Vance, when he was telling her, the social media coordinator, okay, now shimmy over here and cut this piece of paper, do a spin, kiss it real quick and quack like a duck. Like it's these dumb, silly things that are so unentertaining. I am so surprised that people love that kind of stuff. I don't find myself spending 61-minute increments of, scrolling. I personally don't do that unless it's someone where it's a moment where I'm, feeling like someone's attractive. Now I will spend 35 minutes on that. Yes, I will scroll for a good 35 minutes. Summer is coming and I like to see some hot bodies. Okay. But in terms of like scrolling versus like consuming quality content, I, as the youngest I can remember, loved talk show, loved radio. So season 4 was really great. Now let's talk about something that did kind of come up. It seemed like episode 9 out of this world amazing. And then season 10, you were left with like, what's going on? They went to Singapore. Is Deborah not actually authentically, connecting? You kind of feel like she's grown so much, but then that side of her where she is so alienated, she was alienated with her sister, albeit the situation. She's alienated a little bit with her daughter. And you thought maybe this season the grandchild would change things, but I think in the Singapore episode, the finale, episode 10, it's like, Deborah, is she always this protected? And is she always this raw across the board? Therefore, she needs to never let that guard down, And Ava goes back and forth, and Ava is no walk in the park. Ava has got a lot to fix. Fortunately, she's younger, and she had this great job as the head writer on this talk show. So really, the ball is in her court, and I think that the next season we will see a lot of Ava really rebounding. Wow, 2 sports references right there. Hey, rebounding and going hard in the paint for her own career. 3 sports references. Let's go. Put me on ESPN. No, not really. I've been to the set of ESPN. I worked a couple of productions there before. It is really beautiful for what it's worth. It's in Connecticut. It's like a campus. It's like sort of in the middle of nowhere, but you could just feel the regalness of like what it stood for at the time. ESPN being the worldwide leader of sports. See, this is me. I only talked about ESPN because I was talking about a sports reference, but I love all things. I guess you would say I'm old school. I'm over 40 now. So like, I just can't get into this, going to TikTok, going to Reddit, Instagram, whatever. And like, oh, this was maybe said possibly, but maybe, but I mean, I think we've sort of, and this is where Ava started her career because she's just spouting anything out on Twitter, season 1. And it became a little bit of a hindrance towards her, but it's this idea of like, what do we want? And like I said, I only talked about ESPN a second ago because I was talking about sports references, and me, not a sports fan, it's like I still appreciated this massive production and what it stood for, And I just think we're in this weird place where why I usually side with Deborah, although she's got her issues, is I love the people that care about the act. I love the people that care about this completely. The show's got energy that I used to love, such as the other 2. It's kind of got that energy. It's got a lot of difficult people on Hulu energy as well. It's just the perfect kind of show. It's different, of course, but I love this this type of back and forth, and I love the elements of like going for yours, chasing your dreams. As you get older, where are your boundaries? The newness of it all, and how do you even like still compete? It's stuff that I go through all the time. I'm like, no, I'm never, you will not get me to stop doing what I'm doing. But there's times you just like, am I supposed to stop? But then you look at your resume and what you can provide and what you know how to do, and you could get busy, and you want to just kind of keep going. I think that's what's special about creating in general. For me, it's like I said, the world of radio, podcasting, my Patreon, but it's Paul and the rest of the creative team and the full production team. They created a show that like feeds certain people. And in this case, I get to be certain people. And that's why they get up and do the show. Now, getting into season 5, we'll talk about maybe predictions of what we think will happen in season 5, but probably the biggest portion of season 4, without question, had to be the episode that they sort of wrote a love letter to Los Angeles. Now, I grew up in Southern California, spent about 7 to 8 years in New York City. So I think as a kid, when I first watched Janet Jackson's Let's Wait a While, I was obsessed with New York. When I first watched Jane's Child music video, I was obsessed with New York City. I don't even know if these were in New York City, but like I've always been more New York, New York, New York versus, Los Angeles and the chill vibes and whatever. It served a purpose when I worked in radio 100 years ago, but like I just always struggle with my love for LA outside of the fact that like I'm from SoCal and there are some beautiful moments and there's family, but I'm talking about like creatively and like in an artistry way, it's sometimes lackluster. But let me just tell you how beautiful, albeit difficult to push through, that they had to kind of do in terms of Wall the Fires. And, they did this particular episode It's like that thing. The wildfires happened. It affected everybody. I can, not to like go on a tangent, but I can remember a certain thing, and in that certain thing, it's like, oh, well, that only happened because of this and this, and it's like annoying to kind of push through. So I think of it on that one hand, I'm like, wow, how did they push through? In the regards of they were going through so much, but that's maybe the beauty of it. The beauty of it is you could make sure that your production gets to pay homage. And I think the way that episode opened up, I can't recall the exact episode, but it was like they showed the full film crew, how they were actually putting the set together, the fictional set for Deborah Vance. And I think at the end there was like a nod to the home. One of the homes that they used for the exterior was in Altadena, so it was affected by the fires in a very dramatic and tragic way. So it's, to me, that was like, not only do we have a wonderful show, but we also have the element of finding ways to dig into the art amongst adversity. And when you get to like sort of put it on film, I don't know. I'm like, is it harder because now you still got to get up and still produce a show, or is something therapeutic about it because you get to kind of dig in and take all that energy and put it into the work? It's a tale as old as time. You really don't know the answer. It's really like a personal decision to push through, I suppose. But at the same time, like it's got to be a lot. Anyway, season 5, what's going to happen? I've always still kind of said sometimes the show is in a way where it feels like we're always questioning Deborah, and like she has to like open up to Ava. And that's, yeah, you don't want Deborah to be like a jerk or anything, but at the same time, like Ava still is clawing her way and she's still building. And I think there's just a part of me, old school as it is, that like sides with Deborah, because like I can't, it's like Deborah has a thing she wants to be guarded about because she earned it and she worked her way up towards it, and she's not going to like just let anyone in. So if you think about it, like Ava's more free, more chill. Well, you could be that way when you are still sort of building what you're building. I mean, at the end of the day, I struggle with it so much because I'm always like, come on, Ava, you should be more appreciative that Deborah, even though you felt cooler than to want to work with the Deborah type, it still works for you too. But I do have to admit, they are the yin, the yang. It is Ava who, that first episode in the pilot, just giving way too much information and not knowing how to create a business side of the work, albeit comedian and funny and writer and all these things, but knowing how to like be professional. But then on the other side, it's like, Deborah Vance, I think in the pilot, she said something along the lines of like, oh, well, I need all these jokes, but don't make it a joke about this, or pantyhose, or like just things that were so dated. So there is a part of it, Deborah Vance, that wasn't updated. And I think we all struggle with that. We get very much comfortable in what we do, or maybe we don't, but I know I do. We get very comfortable in what we know. We get comfortable in what we love. We get comfortable in what we want to consume. And it makes it hard. And when you get that gift to like work with somebody who will also give you something really wonderful, I think that's great. Now, the biggest thing about this is I'm excited about season 5. I think it's going to be Ava's moment to shine, and that's going to be a good thing. Deborah has to stay away because of the non-compete and because of just the severity of all that had happened. And now, if they're not in a good place, is it both building up together? Are we going to get a flash forward? I really don't know, but I do love the show. I was almost nervous to even want to do a recap commentary, here on randomlyronniejr.com, youtube.com/randomlyronniejr. Same for the Patreon. So if you want to support economically, you can, because I do my best. But I was really, really, really thinking like, I really revere the people who put the show together and the way it's written. I'm like, I'm such a cornball, I'm more like reality TV and Wendy Williams, I don't know the artistry like that, but I appreciate it and I like it. And I just wanted to make sure the respect was there. And I don't want to say, I see a lot of commentators who, YouTubers or whatever, they don't know what they're talking about. And that's like so okay these days. And I just want to make sure that when I crack the mic, that I'm saying something substantial and we're in it together community wise, because that is the intention for the show. You create a show, the creators of the show created this, HBO greenlit it, HBO Max, HBO Go, HBO Now. Could you imagine they changed the name like 5 times and it should have been HBO the whole time? I tell you, not everyone knows what they think they know. But they changed it back to HBO. HBO, greenlighting this show, Hacks. Um, it's a special communal experience for those who, enjoy the celebration of that type of art and putting a comedy together, and how you mix business with personal, and it's just so great. It's so great. And I was even on the phone with a friend the other day, and it's like, oh yeah, they'll definitely, of course, be greenlit. Like that wasn't even a question. Season 5, um, and so, and I guess, yeah, with all the awards and the buzz around it, I think they're in for something really special for season 5. Right now, we've seen mostly the vehicle of show business and Deborah's original dream that she sort of lost all those years ago with the ex-husband and stuff like that. So now I think we're really about to see a different side of her, and it's like you've heard it years ago, like when I think Oprah was interviewing Jay Leno during that time, and it was like, who are you without the show? And I think at the time Oprah hadn't let go of her show, and it was like she had to figure that out as well. Deborah needs to figure that out as well. Jay Leno turns to, he's the car guy. Oprah is the Oprah lady. But what is Deborah? Deborah is the what? What is Deborah? Is Deborah, we've seen her date the network executive that ended up being a demise situation that didn't work. But who is she? And I really wonder, my thoughts are like, is it the grandchild is going to really be the thing? Is it her realizing I'm no spring chicken? Maybe I want to start mending some relationships with my daughter. Or does she keep that shell up? The older you get, like I said, over 40 years old, I feel like I was just 28 years old driving into Los Angeles radio to be an intern, and then driving to Bakersfield radio that same week. So instead of 7 days a week of work, I was doing like 9 to go be on the air in Bakersfield at 2 a.m. When you have this dream so deeply, it could become all of who you are. And I think there's just such a beautiful moment for Deborah to find out who she is without her aspirations. I remember there was a time where like I could not want to do this. And I still love it, but I love it with a check attached, and monetization, and it's a job, and it doesn't take away from the love, but I say that to say there are a lot of people, and I've been here too, so I'm critiquing myself of yesteryear. There's a lot of people that are actually crazy, and they turn that crazy and sort of justify it and become a great worker. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but thinking about this, do you remember the show Unreal? I think it was on Lifetime originally. Unreal was like that. The girl who was the producer of it was a fake reality, like The Bachelorette and Bachelor. And it was called Unreal. And the girl who was the producer, I think she had a conversation with her mother or a therapist. But the point is, she had a conversation, and they were kind of saying like, yeah, you are good at your job. And it was like the level of like, because you're crazy. Now, I'm not using the word crazy because I know we're not trying to like dismiss the word crazy. And I'm just general terms. I don't remember the show that deeply all these years later, but it was something like, more like, the more wrecked you are, sometimes you can mask that, and it could look like you're just like this insane work, let's get it done, let's keep succeeding. But you do have to break down, are you healthy? And maybe that's something we don't want to talk about. I was on a conversation with another friend who he's starting his podcast, and you talk about the like at all costs. And he's bringing up all these examples, this, and this. And I won't say who the person is, but it was like a major athlete. And this athlete, it's like all these examples were given, but it was like, well, wait a minute. This athlete, yes to everything you said, which is what my friend said. But this athlete, at the cost of, did not have the parents in this athlete's life. So like, I just think, I think Deborah has a nice little lane to go down where she can see that I've done it, I've accomplished, and I had to take those compromises and maybe leave parts of me out in the past. I get it. But now it's her turn to make sure she could be a fully healthy person and still pursue the craft. You see what I'm saying? I know I'm going on all these tangents, and when I go on them, I get like amped about it. I get like really excited and like, I can't believe, But it's just it is an up and down. It is a crazy little roller coaster that is career. But the crazy roller coaster beyond the career is when you succeeded, you got the good money, and you're not even fulfilled. And that's Deborah Vance. And that is something that we all have to be like, Deborah, as your fan, act like Deborah's a real person. Deborah, as your fan, played by the wonderful Jean Smart, people, you don't want to be celebrated and give great work to your audience at the cost of you. You just don't. There's some musicians we could talk about that have went through that, where they've sort of, I guess that's the $1,000,000 question. Yeah, you've given this album, that album, that album, tour here, tour there, whatever, but at the cost of you. You're broken. I think I don't know, maybe I'm like thinking too much. It's a Sunday. It's a day of reset, and I'm really feeling like Deborah's like a real person. I feel like Jean Smart made Deborah a real person. Anyways, Ava, it's going to be a big season for her character in season 5, as is Deborah's character in season 5. And I'm so glad that it got greenlit, and I've been loving the show. And wow, when you watch season 1, sometimes shows that I like, they don't keep coming back. And I'm like, oh gosh. But so this one, the fact that it is coming back, and it gets to celebrate just comedy and women in comedy and aging to a certain age. We all know that when you're in that 18 to 35-year-old bracket, it's kind of easy to succeed in some ways. When you get older, it gets a little bit different, let's say. And we get to see that through Deborah. And even though Ava's the hot young thing, Ava, when you're 26 at one point, you'd be 35 the next, and it's somebody else younger, ready to just, maybe undercut you. And it's like, there's a lot that is in the future. So I think it's going to be a great season 5. Anyways, favorite characters or favorite episodes, you're welcome to chit-chat it up on the comments, and make sure you support my Patreon. What? Did I have a Patreon? Yes, I got a Patreon. So, hook it up.